she has served on and behalf of. She is currently the Policy and Advocacy Manager for ActionAid Sierra Leone. Let us put our hands together and welcome Madam Aminata Kelly Lame. Well, I've just been informed that the people at the high table have not introduced themselves, so they want to do that quickly.
Yeah, good morning everyone. My name is Mohamed Kainane Conte, the National Education and Public Relations Officer for Two Drivers and General Transport Workers.
My name is Aliou Fofana, Secretary General Sierra Leone Workers Union, Executive Member and Chairman of the Education Committee of the Sierra Leone Labour Congress. Good morning.
Good morning. Ada Arabia Conte, National Secretary General Marketing Association, Secretary National State Council.
Good morning. I am Bintu Kamara, the Programs Coordinator of the 50/50 Group, also representing the President of the 50/50 Group. I've introduced myself. Aminata Kelly, representing ActionAid. Can I stand with permission for more? I want to, on behalf of the organizers, we'll take this opportunity to welcome the Secretary General of the Bar Association. Welcome to the high table. I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of us present here this morning on behalf of CAR and their founders, Osiwa, for organizing this great assembly of diverse people to come and talk, brainstorm, and find resolvable solution to an issue that should be people-centered, and that is the constitutional review process in Sierra Leone. I just came in this morning and I was asked to temporarily take the place of Dr. Taki, who is supposed to be here, but unfortunately should be a bit late. And so I've not prepared any speech to make as the moderator of this session. Nonetheless, having been part of a process that has been ongoing for years, I should be able to say I'm not the memory bank, but I have some amount of thoughts around the issue and the process. We are here today, according to the letters that we all received, for us to look at the process and look at the status of the progress of the constitutional review, to be able to identify gaps and also profile recommendations for a people-centered and speedy process. And I guess the assembly here today is all-inclusive, because when we talk about the union, we talk about different aspects of civil society, we talk about our lawmakers who are also part of us, the law enforcers who are that we have in the room today. And I am sure that we will not leave here without concrete recommendations for action by the government. Constitutional review process in Sierra Leone 1991 has been in operations or in progress, I will call it since 2012, 2014, and it has moved on for several years. Active civil society organizations have been behind this poll, including CAL and so many others, actually inclusive. We have fought, not physically, but we have fought with hands, with our minds, with our brains, to see this process start. Even though it has got its stalemate in different ways and in different formats, but I'm sure a conference like this poses a situation to reflect that it's still worth moving forward. In the first phase, when it was done by Justice Kawan, a whole lot of diverse civil society organizations and institutions, be they public and private, came up with their own position in terms of what should be in the report. And I can remember that when we were looking at women's rights through 50-50 Women's Forum, we were also continuing to look at natural resources, how we should be managed, and how the Constitution should take note of all of these things. When we looked at governance in terms of the executive power of the powers of the executive in governance, we looked at diverse other issues. Everybody, people with disability, women, and so on and so forth. So many issues were brought to the fore of what should be in the Constitution. But also recognizing the fact that everything cannot be in the Constitution. Our able commissioner, may his soul rest in peace, had to package what is fitting and behold of a nation called Sierra Leone. And we got a report. Had it not been its history, but it's good for us to remember how far we have come. I know we'll be going through the journey. Had it not been for civil society who rose up at that time, it could have been something dubiously passed through the Parliament of Sierra Leone. But thank God it did not. And then it became forestalled. And I'm sure some of us voted on the understanding that constitutional review will be one of the priorities that will be followed through by the incoming government. To our dismay, it became forestalled, even though it was a ticket by which it came into power. After rigorous pushing by civil society and allies, it became very clear that it is worth a process to continue. And it was picked up. Out of the 100 and so many recommendations that was derived by then, the APC government, a process we thought should start afresh. The incoming government thought it's a waste of time, it should not be started afresh, but we should continue what has been started. Fair enough, it was picked up, but then out of the 130-something recommendations, 50 was taken on board. We had so many progressive ones, which civil society was willing to go by. But we had progressive ones that were denied, with little or no justification whatsoever. And we had so many more that needed to be considered. We have been fighting behind the words, knowing and thinking that this is something, a dream that will come true for us to have a dream. And only, I think was it January of last year, we realized that a committee has been set, or mid last year, a committee has been set to push the process forward. And we are all happy. Lo and behold, the process came to a standstill. Now the question we are asking ourselves, and I think we have to answer, and then put to our policymakers what has become of the process. I was talking to one of my colleagues and he said, we have done this thing over and over and over again. I said, yes, we have done it over and over and over again, but that is the mandate as we have as civil society to remind and continue to remind and follow up on processes that we know are proper and people-centered. And the Constitution is one. All of the things that we are going through, in my opinion, not possibly in the opinion of my organization whom I stand to represent here, in my opinion, if our Constitution, 1991 Constitution, has been reviewed, we can deal with and anything under the sun for the nation's progress and development. And so, ladies and gentlemen, with the vast ideas, brains, minds that we have here today, it is God's good that Sky, seeing the significance of a process of this nature, should bring us together for us to ask, where are we now? What are the gaps? How can we go forward? And how can we have a process that is speedy so that the development of Sierra Leone is not snail pace? For now, whether you agree with me or not, our nation's development is snail pace. And I'm sure you and I don't like the trend of what is happening. And I'm sure you and I are afraid within ourselves about the future of our children. An old constitution is an old constitution, whether we like it or not. It has its gaps, and those gaps must be filled. And that is why we are here today. So I take this opportunity once more to welcome you all and for us to give ears to all that will be hearing, whether in statements, in presentations, or even in our deliberations among ourselves. I want to thank you for your presence and for your contribution, your participatory contribution. Thank you. I guess we can start off quickly. As I said, we are here to know about the status of the progress, identify that, and provide recommendation for a citizen-centered and speedy process. We have all agreed that progressive constitution is what we need and what we want. In the light of that, I will now call on the Executive Director, Center for Accountability and Rule of Law, Abraham Tommy Esquire, to give us an overview of the conference. My Leone, welcome.
Madam Chairperson, and I'm truly grateful that you could step in the absence of Dr. Taki. And thank you very much. Madam Chairperson, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'd like to start by recognizing everyone. I see very many important people. All of you are very important, of course, but I'd like to just acknowledge the presence of those who traveled far and wide from the regions to be here only to participate in this conference. I recognize everyone on the high
representatives from political parties. I see Mr. Siria Chinis from the opposition APC. I haven't seen any representative from the APC, SFP or the other political parties. I'd like to recognize all of you, my colleagues in civil society. Thank you very much for coming. My job is not to be a vote of thanks, but I thought I should start by recognizing you. We're here today because, as you are all aware, this process started nearly 18 years ago. In 2006, the Peter Tucker Constitutional Review Committee was set up. That committee finished its job and presented a report in 2008 to former President Goma, who in 2013 set up a committee, the Justice Council Committee. That committee did a brilliant job of putting together a report that we believe largely reflects the views and aspirations of Sierra Leoneans. That report was presented to the previous administration, and the previous administration acted on it by issuing a white paper. Unfortunately, the process didn't end because the white paper was not transformed into a constitutional bill, and therefore a new constitution was not done. As the chairperson said, when we voted in 2018, I'm sure on the minds of many voters, the issue of the new constitution was very much present. So we had hoped that once we have a new administration in, the business of making a new constitution will be a priority. Unfortunately, here we are 6 years on, we still do not have a new constitution. To say that I am disappointed is an understatement, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of many Sierra Leoneans. We expected this process to have been wrapped up by now because we are putting, as a country, huge amounts of resources as development partners who will be working towards the country. Even as CSOs, our time, our efforts, the risk, the sacrifices, we travel the length and breadth of this country just working on this process. I think just a bit of effort on the part of the government would have perhaps spared us. Madam Chairperson said when she told her colleague that she was coming to yet another meeting, the person said, well, we've done this several times, why are we doing this again? We have to do this because, ladies and gentlemen, as citizens, we have a responsibility to not just remind our government, but we have a role to play in these processes. Again, a constitution is for and about citizens. It's about us. We all know that governments come and go, citizens remain. It is critically important that we play a part in shaping what will become the next constitution of Sierra Leone. As I said moments ago, we have seen a white paper, and because of today's discussion, I will make a presentation of our review of the current administration's white paper that clearly shows, and others, our review clearly shows that there are some recommendations that they have rejected, which we think ought to be the constitution. There are some that they have accepted, which we agree with, and we'll make that presentation, and we also have a chance to reflect on that presentation, but also make your comments, proper recommendations, and indeed, where gaps exist, and as the chairperson has said, we note that there are still many gaps in this constitutional review process. Principally, it is important that citizens are kept updated and engaged in the process. I have to repeat myself on purpose. A constitutional making process may be led by the government, but it is not for the government. It is for the people of Sierra Leone, which is why people have to be part of the process. You have to take on board people's views. I know people may argue that the process of taking people's views on board ended with the current commission or committee. Respectfully, I disagree. I think until the document is passed in Parliament and approved at referendum, government must always provide a space, keep an open mind, and allow views, progressive views that can shape the process. Because ultimately, we do not want a constitution passed today, and the next week we're talking about amendments. And as I said on a radio interview this morning, a lot of events have happened since 2016. a lot of things that happen that we think, on reflection, should have been part of the Calvary report. So I'd like to use this platform to urge the government of Israel not just to speed up this process, but also to keep citizens informed and engaged in what they are doing. But most importantly, continue to have a space for citizens' views, because I think citizens must lead. Government obviously has the resources, has the power, but citizens must lead in this process. Without citizens' leadership, we will have a new constitution only to start asking for a review or an amendment shortly after it's passed. Which is why today, as if you receive letters from us, we have invited a representative from the Office of the Attorney General to come here and speak to citizens. And I should say that this program is streamed live on AYP, so that not just those who are in this room, but citizens across the country who are following us on AYP can know where things stand at the moment. We'd like to know where things stand in the process, because this process is for us, it's about us, and government should open itself up to be heard to account by citizens. This is why we exist as civic groups, and this is what we demand from our government officials, to make themselves available to speak to us about what processes they are leading on our behalf. On that note, Madam Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say that today's session is going to be very participatory. After the statements, as I promised, I'll make a presentation basically on our comments, our review of the government white paper. We will invite comments from you, and after that, we will take the conversation forward. Again, I keep hoping that we'll get a representative from the Office of the Attorney General to come here and tell us basically why the Office of the Attorney General, because the Office of the Attorney General is the office that is leading on this right now. Basically, the way it works, once the white paper has been done, it's the Office of the Attorney General that now advises the government, including drafting constitutional appeal and presenting it to Parliament for enactment before it's taken to the general public for referendum, because some of the provisions that have been amended are infringed clauses, so it's definitely going to go to public for referendum. On that note, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and as I have said, please participate, speak up, raise your comments or questions, and to the extent that I can, those that I can, I will respond to them. But again, I hope we have someone from the Office of the Attorney General who will respond to some of those questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ibrahim, Tommy, Esquire, for giving us the overview of the conference. So we are here as part of the process of contributing our views to the existing constitutional review process. He said it is for us, by us, and therefore we need to have our say. We need to have our say. And this process creates a safe space for us to make our views, and those views to be considered by government until the process, he says, until the process ends. The views of citizens are paramount. Our views are paramount. Our views are worth taking on board. Thank you, Ibrahim. I will now go on to the statement, and if we have the chairperson for the Human Rights Commission or representative here, it's a pleasure. Leone, okay. I'm president of the Sierra Leone Bar Association in Sweden. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm the Secretary General of the Bar Association. We are pleased to be invited to such an important conference having to do with the Constitution, which governs and which is the key law amongst all the laws in the country. Sierra Leone Bar Association, we are moral guarantors of the Constitution of Sierra Leone. In other words, we do call government to attention where, on circumstances where we think government seems to act otherwise to the constitutional provisions. We do commend government and we do remind government to adhere to constitutional provisions. We applaud the strides and measures taken by the government to review the Constitution. The 1991 Constitution, as my colleague said, has undergone several reviews. We hope that this time around we will have a new Constitution. But however, we, the Bar Association, are very concerned that we have to look at it. We've had several constitutional challenges over the years with the 1991 Constitution that we had. We had several constitutional cases, which some of them still appears controversial. It is our position that now that we have an opportunity to review this Constitution, we have to take into consideration those controversial issues that have been raised over the years having to do with the Constitution. We would not want to have a new Constitution, then in a short while we have to go back to the drawing board to see what we can make an amendment towards the Constitution. Again, if I may just speak again on one issue having to do with executive powers. I think that is one area that has been very controversial for the past something like 8 or 10 years. It's an area where the drafters really have to be cautious and they should not be in a hurry to look at. We have a model where the 1991 Constitution was drafted, and we have to look at the challenges, how we can overcome the challenges so that we have a befitting Constitution. So we commend her for making this process people's participatory, because at the end of the day, the Constitution is going to be the property of the people are going to be the end users of the Constitution. So thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, for reminding this august body about some of the challenges. I hope we're taking notes. Executive power is controversial, and we've also got, according to a Secretary of the Bar Association, custodians, moral guarant of the Constitution of Sierra Leone, that there have been controversial issues that have emerged over time within this constitutional period, and therefore we think we need to take note of them and incorporate them consciously into the to-be new constitution. I call it to-be new constitution because it's still in the making. So thank you very much, Secretary, for bringing our minds back. I want to ask our representatives of our political parties, if they are here, to please come to the high table. APC, okay. SLPP, any representative for SLPP? Sierra Leone People's Party, any representative? NGC? Okay, none. Any other? Our bigger parties, are they here? Because these ones are small ones. Our bigger parties, are they here? Okay, we don't have any. Thank you so much. Our next speaker, our next statement maker is President or Rep from the 50-50. We have been through this. We have been through it. And I know she will remind us as well. Thank you very much, and good morning again, everybody. So I'm speaking on behalf of the President that is not here today due to some unforeseen circumstances. Madam Chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bring you greetings from the 50-50 group of CNU. We want to say thank you very much to CAN and partners for such a valuable and necessary undertaking. As we all know, the Constitution is the highest law of the land, and as such, it is important that it reflects citizens' needs and concerns to help us to ensure ownership and buy-in to the process, just as it was stated by the Executive Director of CAN. The 50-50 group noted with appreciation the positive steps being taken to bring to fruition an updated constitution. Furthermore, we are pleased to hear that a white paper has been issued to meet many of the recommendations in the Justice Council report, given the inclusive nature of the process to inform this report. However, like others, given the urgent need for constitutional reform, we believe that it is important to know where we are in this process, how far we've come, as well as opportunities to ensure that any gaps in both substance and process are addressed. As women and as women-centered organization, we know that constitutional reform is fundamental to the realization of social, political, and economic transformative agenda for women and girls, by extension for the development of Sierra Leone. As far back as March 2016, a cross-section of women came together to develop the Women's Solidarity Response and final recommendations to the CIC draft version of the February 2016 Waiting Salon Women Once Nadi Review Constitution. The recommendations were the outcome of a National Women's Conference in which we examined the CIC reports and commented on it, bringing together several position papers from a cross-section of women groups as well as consultant engagement with women groups over 3 years. We know that male-dominated role is deeply embedded in Sierra society. On several indicators, women lag behind. For example, Afrobarometer's findings of 2022 tells us that women are less likely than men to have post-secondary education, 7% to 20% in comparison to men, and more likely to have no formal schooling, 46% to that of 34%, also in comparison to men. We are also less likely than men to own civic assets, such as radio station, 38% to 70%, a mobile phone, 58% to 78%, and of course access to finance and bank account, 9% to that of 25% to men. There have been many commendable attempts to promote gender equality and women's empowerment, including the recently passed Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, which extends maternity leave for women and calls for equal access and rights to financial services, credit, etc. As well, calls for at least 30% of women in upper management in the workforce, among other things. We also have the PA and the PPA, which collectively provide a de facto 30% quota for women in political office. Inequality is enshrined within the highest law of the land. Sustainable progress of gender equality and equity needs to change within the Constitution. As it currently stands, the Constitution recognizes common and customary laws which discriminate against women in the areas of marriage, divorce, inheritance, property rights, domestic violence, and political participation in violations of the country's international obligations. While there are many gender dimensions for a progressive constitution, in the interest of time, I would like to list only a few here. The recognition of customary law in the Constitution is problematic because customary law are rooted in a male-dominated spectrum. For example, the eldest male members of families control, manage, and protect family and community interests in land, while dominant religious and cultural norms devalue women in practice. The most well-known example is Section 27 for the E of the Constitution, which lacks back anti-discrimination provisions of the Constitution. This section provides exemptions to the anti-discrimination provisions of the Constitution with respect to adoption, marriage, division, burial, devolution of property or debt or interest or personal law. As such, it fails to provide due process and equal protection of the laws. There have been calls for this to be deleted and replaced. Secondly, the focus of the Constitution is on equality. Yet equality assumes that we are starting from the same position and so all must be treated equally. Yet we all know that due to cultural norms and practices and entrenched structural barriers, women will not start from the same position as men. Differences like gender, age, ethnic groups create barriers that need to be addressed. First and so rather than equality, we need to think in terms of equity. That is, each person gets what they need to access same opportunities. This requires positive discrimination or affirmative action in the women's report to address historical gender imbalances against women. Women groups call for the state to develop policies to implement annual affirmative programs in areas of education, political participation, health, and economic empowerment to go on and so forth. Third, ensuring gender parity in politics within the Constitution is the best way to ensure that it is not subject to the whims of any government or political party or a political system. The recommendation from women groups that the state shall take legislative and other measures to implement the principles that not more than 2/3 of the members of executive or appointing positions shall be the same gender. It's an excellent one that will help to address gender parity in our politics in a sustainable way. Among the demands women made were that the Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the House, Deputy Mayors of City Councils, Chairpersons and Deputies of District Councils, and other bodies not be of the same gender, as well as not more than 50% of every elective and appointing position shall be constituted of the same gender. It also called for gender equality in commissions and appointments of judges. Similarly, the Constitution also makes mention of quotas for political parties and mandates that at least 30% of party nominees for national and local government shall be women. Another issue is that aspects of the Constitution discriminate against persons with dual nationality. Section 75 and 76 of the Constitution prescribe persons with dual nationalities and citizens by registration and naturalization from holding elective and appointive position. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is more difficult for a Sierra Leonean woman to give her citizenship to a foreign spouse, unlike a Sierra Leonean man. Citizens Act 1973, as citizens due to marriage, face more provisions with authorities having greater decisions in decision making. As a conclusion, as you can see, there are multiple gender dimensions in the discussion around constitutional reform. Yet, it is imperative that women be given a seat at the table to have total access to discussions about what the new constitution will look like, as well as the scope for input into what is taken on board from the Justice Curran report. The constitution is a rule book and should be co-owned by us all. Platforms like this, where we can discuss what is happening and what remains, are welcome opportunities for citizens and CSO groups to be accounted for. Constitutional reforms generally comes once in a lifetime, and 50-50 group and partners wish to reaffirm our continued commitment to the process and to be part of the ongoing process to see that it is enacted. Thank you very much. End of the statement from the President. Thank you so much for bringing out the constitution. We cannot talk about giving equality when we are not even equitable. We can never be equal if what is due to one is not given fully. Be it education, political, social, economical, you name them. You can go on and on and on. And I'm sure our male counterparts seated here this morning will agree with us that the Sierra Leonean woman needs to be equitable in this society before we start talking about equality. So as we talk on the constitutional review process, we call for your support. Our dear sister of Beauty has laid it out. I could remember as recent when we presented a communique, so the Speaker of Parliament. Those were the issues, I think in 2022. Those were some of the issues we presented. That even as laws are brought to you, for you to debate them and pass them in the wells of Parliament, look at the criticality of the fact that the women need space and the women need to be equitable with our male counterparts. And so for us, the GUI is a step, one step, just one step in the right direction. And so we're looking forward to a constitution that is not only people-centered, but women-focused. Can I hear an amen to that? So we thank you very much, 50-50, for giving us your own perspective. I will now call on the Chairperson, Human Rights Commission, or representative to take the high table, please, if you're here, if you join us. Our third statement maker is from Labour Congress, or representative. I always talk to my colleagues and say, there was a time in Sierra Leone, there was a season in this nation when we talk about unions, duty bearers tremble, policymakers shiver. Why is it now that they no longer shiver, they no longer trouble when we talk about unions? Be it student union, labor unions, trade unionists, and so on and so forth. I think that's something that the unions need to come together and think about. You are still a force to reckon with, but unless and until you put back the fire that used to be in you, you will never be reckoned with. That power still is in your hands. Use it. Now welcome our able Labour Congress Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to note your sublime statement with regards to Sierra Leone Labour Congress per se, unions of Sierra Leone. Well, as a union, Sierra Leone Labour Congress is the parent body, National Labour Center. We'll be doing our little bits, though we could not publicize our activities. But as recent as October, we met with President, His Excellency, on diverse issues that touches the citizens of Sierra Leone, and we highlighted those issues for the attention of his government for possible and potential effects of those issues. Once more, Madam Chair, I bring greetings from the leadership of the Labour Congress, the Labour affiliates, which comprises 32 labor unions, both formal and informal. And especially the President asked me to convey his apology for his absence due to other exigencies. May I take this opportunity to stand on the existing protocol. I am Aliu Fofana, the Secretary General of the Sierra Leone Dock Workers Union, Wataki Union, and also an executive member of the Labour Congress as Chairman of the Education Committee. We as a Congress want to applaud and appreciate the organizers of this conference. We want to express the Labour Congress position that it gives prominence to this conference for the simple fact that the team itself bodes well with us as workers' representative in this country. The Congress, the Labour Congress, revere the Constitution as Christian revere the Holy Bible and Muslim the Holy Quran. The instruments that regulate our relationship in our everyday activity with employers and workers derive its legitimacy from the Constitution. Be it bipartite or tripartite. This instrument, to name a few, like the now review Employment Act, which we want to commend the government for giving us a new act, Employment Act of 2023. Also, instruments like the Regulation of Wages and Industrial Relationship Act, the NACIT Act, and other instruments like the trade group councils we use in our relationship with employers. Congress wholeheartedly supports this review conference and express desire for some of these elements we noted to be considered while doing this deliberation. One, Congress notes the threshold of 55%, which has always been a bottleneck in designing the leadership, especially the presidency, should be looked at and possibly reduce that 55%. Secondly, Congress asks that decentralization issue be addressed and division of responsibility between the local government and central government by adding a new chapter in the revised constitution. 3. Remove the discriminatory provisions against women in section 27(4)(d) and E of the 1991 constitution. Provide greater clarity on citizenship laws to ensure that it is not discriminatory, i.e. based on race or gender. Enshrine a right to a healthy and clean environment that will provide protected for the benefit of a future generation and to introducing a new chapter on land, natural resources and the environment. 6. Separate the office of the Attorney General from that of the Ministry of Justice and make both an appointment subject to approval of Parliament. 7. Maintain strengthened judicial independence by reforming the composition and the mandate of the Judicial and the Legal Service Commission. Make the appointment of judges more independent, transparent, and merit-bound. Make provision for a fixed date for elections and a smooth and clear transition. 10. Abolish supreme executive authority. With those, some of these elements, and with us here today, we hope as a Congress, premium is given or prominence is given this element in our deliberation for us to come out with very succinct decision on matter of relevancy that can be incorporated in this constitution for it to be a working document for us at all times. Though we note that there is no perfect document and there is always the tendency for review going further. But for now, with the environment that we are in, let us look at this element properly. And with that, Madam Chair, I want to thank you all for the audience given to me on behalf of the Labour Congress and wish us